Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. I'm just starting slowly here to give everyone a few moments to join the presentation today. I think we should give a few extra seconds maybe to let everyone join, given that some of us may be moving a little more slowly than usual after staying up late to watch the Toronto Blue Jays take Game 5 of the World Series last night, and never mind the endless game a couple of nights earlier. All right, well, I think we've got a few dozen friends with us. I think let's start without any further ado. Hello and welcome to another online presentation from Biometric Update. We discuss the hot topics and latest issues in biometrics and digital identity. I'm your host and the managing editor of Biometric Update, Chris Burt. Today we're going to talk about modernizing biometric identification in Canadian law enforcement, with LiveScan 2.0 systems in particular. Next generation biometric capture technologies are improving the speed, the accuracy, and versatility of multimodal enrollment and booking systems for all environments. Idemia Public Security's IntelliBook standalone brings capabilities to a law enforcement platform that is already familiar to many of you as a leading option for police and other agencies. The name Idemia Public Security is very well established in law enforcement in Canada and really all over the world, and very well known as one of the leading providers in many different sectors as well, and as a frequent for its frequent appearances atop rankings of algorithms, stuff like that. So we're going to be diving into technical capabilities, integration, and the benefits that Canadian law enforcement agencies can achieve with these kind of systems, with a couple of excellent guests. So I'd like to welcome Laura Radu, Product Manager at Idemia PS. Hello, and thank you for joining us, Laura.
Hello, Chris. Thank you.
And also with us today, we have Henry Schuler, Chief Engineer for Canada with Idemia PS. Hello, Henry, and welcome.
Welcome, Chris.
Now, just quickly, before we dive into the new IntelliBook essay, I want to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. This presentation is being recorded, so all of you who are on the presentation now or who registered and have been unable to join us live, receive an email, and that email will have a link to the recording as well as some other assets, and you can watch back the presentation on demand using that link. We will be getting to a brief question and answer session with Henry and Laura towards the end of our presentation, so I would direct your attention towards the bottom of your Zoom screen where you'll find the Q&A tab, and you can just put your questions in there at any time. We will have to hurry when we get to that point, I suspect, because we've got a lot to get to today, so please ask your questions as they occur to you. If we answer them along the way, so much the better, and we will get to those towards the end. So on that note, Laura, let's dive right into the IntelliBook standalone. Can you please tell us what the IntelliBook standalone is and maybe start us off with a high-level overview?
Of course. So IntelliBook SA is a standalone system, Chris, that is designed to interface with a couple of components, which are a live scan or a card scan, as well as a camera. It captures the demographics data as well as photo images and fingerprints and or palm prints. And we exchange these electronically with RCMP. So we make sure that they are formatted in a standard, correct format that RCMP recognizes, and we submit. RCMP then responds. So I would like to, on this note, to share a high-level diagram with you, if possible.
Perfect.
Okay, so that I happen to have handy. Okay, so it is this one. Okay, so this illustrates what we've been talking about. This is the representation of the IntelliBook SA standalone system. There are no servers. Everything is stored locally. It interfaces with a digital camera or a LiveScan. It captures data from both the digital camera and the LiveScan. It could also be a card scan. And we submit records electronically to RCMP, and RCMP is returning their results to us. What we use this application for is we use this application for both civil and criminal applications. For the civil applications is mostly for employment, citizenship, stuff like that, and also for criminal to identify individuals and ensure whether or not they are known to RCMP. So in other words, obtain their criminal record. And I think that's in a nutshell a good overview of the IntelliBook SA system.
Perfect. And I understand you have prepared something to sort of show us how the transactions work using the IntelliBook SA.
Yes. Would you like to see? Yes, I can present you the a high-level introductory overview of the system. So I'm gonna share again my screen. One moment. Okay. Is everybody able to see my screen?
That's just perfect.
Okay, so after launching the system, we are now at the login page. We log in. Please note that it is available in both English and French. That is a preference of the user. Once set, it remains the same. So we are logging into the system. This is the home page or the workflow manager. And we are now presented with several type of transactions that we support. They are criminal, inquiries, elimination, or civil and refugee as well. Depending on the agency profile, you can see more or less of these. For example, a police agency would have access to most of them, whether a federal agency or a provincial government agency will see probably just the civil ones. Also, if the agency would like to import some of the data for their criminal records from an RMS system, that is available as well and is configurable in preferences. From this, we will go to the transactions manager. The transaction manager is just an overview of all the records that have been processed on a specific workstation. And we can sort these by anything that we would like the date fingerprinted, the record name, anything at all. Also, there is a quick filter here on the top of the page that allows us to quickly retrieve the records by name or by record type and so on, or the transaction state. If we want a more in-depth search to add more filters, then we also have a specialized transaction search where we can search records by, for instance, document control number, or, you know, again, date, fingerprinted, and so on. For instance, if an operator would like to see only his or her records, then they can sort by their own name, and they can see if there is anything to complete from their work queue, for example. And this is a high-level overview of the way the system works. Just a brief note that we can also delete records here, and we can also print records, and that's pretty much it. Oh, sorry, and we also have the ability to export photos to a location on the local workstation. So that's kind of what we have with this particular overview. This is what I would like to show for this part.
That's perfect. Thank you, Laura. That's gives us a good starting point for how the system interacts with other law enforcement systems, and really shows some of the flexibility of the IntelliBook SA as well. So I'd like to bring in Henry at this point to just ask, Henry, what technical infrastructure is required for agencies to adopt the new IntelliBook SA?
Yes, Chris. Well, as the name implies, it's possible to run it standalone. So, and that's an important capability that you don't really need any other computers as part of the solution. The computer in question needs to be able to connect to the National Police Network to transmit transactions to the RCMP, but it can be run independently of other systems. At the same time, there is, as Laura mentioned, there is the ability to integrate with a local RMS system. So if you have a record management system, and it would be common to create the record or create the enter the arrest data into the local record management system, there's an ability to interface in a standard way to IntelliBook, so that this avoids redundant data entry. And that's an important thing in terms of wasting officers' time. So IntelliBook, in terms of the computer it runs on, it's relatively simple, and most modern computers have all the capability you need. A typical 2.4 gigahertz 4-core machine, 32 gigabyte or even 16 gigabytes is fine, and then a relatively lightweight in terms of the amount of disk storage. As Laura mentioned, of course, you need some peripherals. You need a LiveScan device. Idemia has two main types of LiveScan devices. One that includes the ability to capture the fingers and the palms, and that's normally used in an arrest context. We also have scanners that are just for capturing fingers, and those are more commonly used in a civil-only context. So if an agency had both criminal workstations, separate workstations that were civil, if we're dealing with the civilian in terms of employment applications or citizenship applications, that type of scanner is smaller, more convenient to use, and it could be deployed on that kind of machine. In both, no matter whether you're doing criminal transactions or civil transactions, there are many situations where you'd want to take a photograph. And so the type of camera that Idemia recommends is the Canon DSLR or mirrorless cameras, such as the Rebel T7 or the EOS R100. And those are all relatively consumer grade cameras, but are integrated into the application. Now, for agencies that have many workstations, it's also common that the agency might run a local store and forward to act as a concentrator, so they have a single point of contact with the RCMP CCR TIS system. So, but again, as the name suggests, it can be run standalone. You don't need to integrate it with anything else, but there are obviously other options, such as integrating with a local Active Directory.
So Henry, that makes it sound to me like the IntelliBook has been designed with sort of larger and smaller agencies in mind.
That's true. Yeah, across our customer base, we have agencies that are relatively small, and small in the sense that they only have one or two workstations, and sometimes they have many across many precincts or divisions.
Perfect. Well, on that note, Laura, I'd like to come back to you and ask you to get a little bit more into the workflows. I understand you've prepared a couple of videos to help us understand those workflows, from capture of biometrics and demographic information all the way to database submission. So can you show us a little bit more about how that works?
Of course. I will start with a civil application, and then we will move to a criminal one. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Hopefully everybody sees my screen.
We can see it. That's perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so, like I said, we will select a civil application, and we can start the process. It is extremely user-friendly and easy to follow. So the red fields are the ones that are mandatory. And we start by completing the application type. We will capture an ID flags type. The results go to contributor, and this is running in the civil efficiencies mode, but we support both the current state and civil efficiencies for the civil applications. And the application moves very naturally through the tabs. The next part is we complete the biographical data. There is a vertical workflow that is very easy to follow. And also on the left side, please note how the steps completed are turning green and there is a check mark that indicates that they've been completed. And also in red, we can see what is left. So the user at any time can see where he is in the workflow. Now I'm gonna capture a photo, a face frontal. And we're adding it to the record when the capture has been completed. And next we have the fingerprints. This is the moment where if there are missing fingers, we will set them. But in this case, we just capture a standard set of prints. So we just have the flats, the flat right, flat left, and the two thumbs together. This is the fingerprint summary. And we are only left with a biometric consent that has to be captured as well in this particular instance. Not all transactions require it, but some do. We select the finger that we want to capture. And if it is a match, we continue to the final step, which is submission. We authorize and we move on. And that's it. The record will show, we are now being returned to the transaction manager, and we can see that the record is enqueued, and shortly thereafter, it will show as sent. This is basically the final step in the civil workflow. Okay, so any questions so far?
One question that comes to mind is how does the system validate the data that you're entering into? How does it perform?
Yes, this is validated in real time. The fields are, if there is a problem, the data in that field will turn in red, and there will be a text message indicating that the data is not formatted correctly. So everything is happening in real time. So the user doesn't have to go back at the end and correct. So this way, he or she saves time because they are doing it right then and there. The application does not let you progress until you corrected all the data before being able to submit.
Right. So if you got an issue, you just look for the red data that didn't validate and fix your typo or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So this is it with the civil. And would you like to see a criminal as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we are now doing a criminal record. There will be, of course, several more steps. Now I'm at the biographical data, which is obviously the name, date of birth, sex, height, weight, and so on.
You see the fields turn from red to green as the information is entered.
Yes, exactly. We can see the workflows. Now it's blue because we're still doing the demographic data capture. And once this is done, it will turn in green. And we can move to the next tab. Oh, this is
Can I jump in with a quick question, Laura?
Please.
I just happened to notice in that last screen you were entering the home address. Now this is for a criminal workflow, so presumably there are going to be situations in which a person is not forthcoming with their information, or they are no fixed address or something like that. How does the system handle those kind of situations?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So RCMP allows in these situations for a criminal record we can enter fields like unknown or no fixed address.
Okay.
These are recognized as valid by our CMP.
Perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, this is how we do it. So now this is not a mandatory field, but I wanted to quickly just present. We have this body chart where we can enter scars, marks, and tattoos. So the user can very easily point on the location on the body, and then they can just continue by entering. I just moved a little bit prior to this, sorry, to just show you the address, but yeah. And now I'm going back to this. So the body chart allows the user to pinpoint exactly the location and the type of scar, marks, tattoo, and put a comment. And I will enter another one in a different location, let's say on the right knee. So now this person has two scar, marks, tattoos, two features. One scar on the knee and one tattoo on the shoulder. Then we have to enter the charges, of course, the mandatory date of offense, the statute. We select now a criminal code charge. And in the next field, we can narrow down, because there's so many charges available, we can narrow down by just entering a few characters of the charge, for example, theft or the charge number that we remember. And then this narrows down the available charges that then the operator can select from. So for the next charge, I will select, the first one was theft. For the second one, it will be still a criminal code, and I will select the word arson. And those specific charges will be listed, so I can select the one that I think applies in this situation. And now we have both charges shown here on the right side. And when I am done, they will be applied to the record. So notice how the demographic capture now turned green and has a check mark. And we are now moving to the photo capture. We can capture, obviously, not just the full frontal. We can also capture a left profile and a right profile if need be. The system does an auto face centering. We don't have to worry about this part. And formats in the correct format. And we are now finally at the fingerprints. Here, in the criminal world, we cannot capture ID flags. Obviously, we will capture a 10 prints, which means not just flags, but also rolls. And we also are able, we support palm prints. So now I'm using a Morphoto 5300 in this particular transaction that supports both fingerprint capture, rolled fingers, and palm prints. So I will capture all of them. Notice how the system performs a real-time quality and sequence check. So if everything is green, then we are allowed to progress. If not, we are required to recapture. And notice on the left side how the operator always knows what finger is next and so on, what he's capturing at the moment. Also note on the right side, the finger in question is colored in blue when it is being captured, and in green if everything is okay, like if the image passes sequence and quality check. I will come back to this notion because I wanted to show what happens when there are problems with the fingerprints, just how the application handles that. I have a separate comment to make at the end.
This fingerprint collection seems to be going quite well. Good job by the operator.
Yes, yes. So now we are capturing the left rolled thumb. So we are now doing the left hand. If the finger fails because of the quality or the sequence, then the operator is required to recapture. But so far, so good in this instance. We are now at the left ring, and pretty soon we'll be done and we can move to the palms.
Yeah, and you can see as it goes along the quality check results for each print.
Yes,
Yeah.
the check marks, yes, that's great. Thank you for noticing, yes. Everything turns green as we move along. So we are done with the fingerprints. Notice the check mark, and we are now capturing the right palm. And we see here the blue coloring of the right palm, upper palm. So we know what that is basically capturing at the moment. Next, we are moving to the lower palm. And the writer's palm. I guess I could skip ahead so I don't keep everybody, but let me see if we can skip a little bit. Okay, so here we are at the fingerprint summary, and we can switch between the 10 prints and the palm prints. And when we are done, we can use the submit button, have the charges associated being sworn in court, and that's it. And we submit. And this is basically it with the criminal record. And we will see it again in the fingerprint summary as sent. I would like, if it's okay, I would like to share a little bit about what we do if the fingerprints fail, how we handle this in the application. So basically there are exceptions to what we just did. Like if there are missing fingers, then before the fingerprint starts, we have the ability to select a missing reason and the corresponding finger, and apply. There's also the ability to do this by using the right click and do it in the criminal fingerprint summary. Okay, I just wanted to come back and explain the part with the real time quality and sequence check. So basically what happens is if the fingers don't pass, then we will see a yellow background for the failed prints, for the failed quality, and we see that the corresponding fingers also are colored in yellow. And if the sequence fails, then we show a red background, and we show the corresponding palm being or finger, sorry, being colored in red. So this can be configured. If the users don't like to see the fingerprint background, then we can disable or enable according to their preferences. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show is very briefly, once a record is submitted, what are the steps that we can expect in the transaction manager? So as we saw, the first step is to send the record, so it will show as sent. The next step is that RCMP will send an acknowledgement to us, and this way we know that they received our transaction and everything is okay. And then the final step is an SRE, which is the final response, and we see this completes our cycle of electronic fingerprint submission and response. What we can do is then we can expand by clicking on the record. We can expand to see the exact details of the response from RCMP, and we can also print it as a PDF. All the details from the SRE will appear in a PDF format, in a report. And that's what I wanted to share with you about how we do these submissions in NIBK SA. Sorry, new IntelliBook SA.
Very good. Thank you, Laura. You can really see there how the flexibility of the IntelliBook SA dovetails with the user experience kind of concerns to make things easy for officers to complete their registration or enrollment tasks. yeah, the color coding and the customizability and all of that. So yeah, thank you for that, Laura. I'd like to actually turn back to Henry at this point, to ask, when we've got the IntelliBook SA deployed, and we want to integrate it with existing criminal justice systems like the CPIC or Canada's AFIS. Now, Laura sort of touched on this a little bit, but Henry, can you go into that a little bit in terms of how the integration works?
Well, yeah, Chris, as Laura mentioned, the transition gets submitted to the RCMP. And when we say that, what we really mean is to the CCR TIS system, Canadian Criminal Real-Time Information Service. So which is a system that the RCMP operates on behalf of law enforcement agencies in Canada. So that system, once it receives the transactions and goes through, and it, just to clarify, the standard mechanism for transmitting is an application to application email. So it's not an ordinary email over internet or anything like that. It's an application to application email, and it goes over the NPS net. So it's a secure transaction from the law enforcement agency to the RCMP CCR TIS system. And once that system receives it and does its own quality assessment of the transaction, it'll eventually be forwarded on to the AFIS that the RCMP operates, and that's when the fingerprints get searched. At some point, the system at RCMP will send back a response. Laura showed that there's different steps in that response management. There's, in addition to a successful response, there could of course be error responses, and those would show up in the application also. And once the transaction is fully processed by through the RCMP AFIS, then it gets forwarded to another system, and eventually it gets forwarded onto CPIC, and that's where the transaction would be up. If this is a criminal arrest transaction, then that information gets updated into CPIC. So the connection between IntelliBook and CPIC is essentially nothing. I mean, that's all behind the scenes and managed by the RCMP services in RCMP headquarters. Okay.
So the steps that we saw that's all of the steps, essentially.
Yeah, there's no other integration points between the application and other external systems other than this application to application email, which goes to the RCMP CCR RTIS system.
Right. Sounds easy enough. So with that in mind, Henry, what kind of impact do you think the IntelliBook SA can have on Canadian agencies?
So one of the features that Laura showed is that there's the management of the workflow. So there's lots of guidance in the workflow to make it convenient for the operator to proceed and not to run into difficulties. At the same time, it does have a guided workflow, but at the same time, the operator is able to jump ahead or jump back in case they want to deal with something in a slightly different order. So that flexibility makes it easier for them to adapt to any, maybe their local paperwork or something like that they want to do. So another, and as Laura showed, the app the data can be validated immediately. At the same time, it's possible that you could, in some situations where you'd want to defer the entry of the field, you could then go back to it later on. Well, and also if you somehow forget a field that's mandatory, when you try to save the record, it'll tell you, and it gives you the option to go right back to that point in the user interface where the information is needed and missing. So that flexibility reduces the time wasted by the operator in terms of trying to manually navigate to address problems.
Very good. And what about compatibility with systems used in all the various provinces across the country and even international systems?
Well, in Canada, the primary connection between the system is to the RSMP central system. And so it's in IntelliBook SA is not a province specific system. It's meant to be a Canada-wide system, and it's definitely different than systems that are used in other countries. At the same time, even though this application is different than what you might see in the US or other countries, it uses the same underlying technologies that Idemia uses in other parts, in other product lines and other products. And one of the things that we haven't mentioned is that this product we call IntelliBook SA, and we do have another product which we call IntelliBook Enterprise, and that product is similar, but in many ways very different because it's structured as a client-server database system where there is indefinite retention of records, and ends up, and it also includes additional features for investigators to use, such as lineups and things like that. But not all customers want a system like that because they may do that kind of investigative management or long-term data management in other systems that they already operate. So we have the balance between the standalone system and the enterprise system, and it depends on the customers, the agency's business flows, which is a better fit for them.
So, and that's the consideration for making your choice, is which one is going to suit your needs. Not so much, you don't have to worry about what the people on the other side of the provincial border are using, because it's all going to interact with the same system anyways.
Yes, that's right. I mean, one of the features of well, I don't want to go into too many other features of IntelliBook SA, IntelliBook EE. This is about IntelliBook SA, and like I said, it's really designed as a kind of a self-contained system that can operate independently to facilitate. It makes it easy to deploy. It only needs that one connection, so to speak, which is the connection to the National Peace Network, the NPS network. So, yeah.
Perfect. I've just got a couple more questions here, and then we do have our first couple of questions also asked from the audience. So please keep those questions coming. We'll turn to those in just a minute when I've finished dominating with all of the questions that I have. To that end, I wanted to ask Henry, what innovations or upgrades are potentially on the horizon for the IntelliBook SA and even for LiveScan technology more generally?
Well, I think there's three main areas, and I can give you of that those innovations happen. So one is that the RCP themselves have defined some new features that they're going to support as part of their CCR TRS system, and those features are roughly labeled civil efficiencies. And although that suggests that maybe it would not be of interest to law enforcement agencies, the fact is many law enforcement agencies do, in addition to processing criminal transactions, serve the general public for civil transactions, as I mentioned, for employment opportunities, citizenship, adoption, things like that. And in that area, one of the in that area, in that context for civil transactions, the RCMP has introduced something that they call civil efficiencies, which is intended to improve the overall ease of information exchange between the applicant and ultimately the RCMP. So that's not in production at the RCMP's CCRTS system right now. It's scheduled. It may be deployed, I think, in 2026, but I can't say for sure. And at that point, that's an innovation that we'll have adopted in IntelliBook SA by the time before it goes to production by the RCMP. Another aspect is new technology. So I mentioned earlier that Idemia has some LiveScan devices, and we're always innovating in that area with new devices. updating the electronics in the device, using more modern technology, getting a better situation. We had, like many companies, we had that a real time to market issue, a supply chain problem during COVID, and as a result of all of that, we've changed some of the internal designs of some of our LiveScan devices, and so we'll be adopting those in IntelliBook SA and making them available. One of them, for instance, is in addition to the MTOP 2020, which is an optical scanner, we'll be introducing a TFT, which is basically a flat, a low profile device, so smaller and slimmer, and that device is meant for civil use, not really intended for criminal use, because it's a finger only device. And finally, other where Idemia is a large company, and we have development that occurs worldwide, and in some, from time to time, we synchronize and integrate features that are available in other jurisdictions. And as an example, one of those is we expect to be introducing some changes to IntelliBook SA to make fingerprint capture order more configurable, so agencies can have a better, if they have a preference in terms of the sequence of image capture, they'll have the ability to configure the system to support their preference. So there's a large range of things. IntelliBook SA is one of our more recent product offerings in Idemia Canada, and we're have many things that we intend to do to it.
Yeah, it's a fairly lengthy list between matching up with the RCMP's innovations and workflow flexibility. It sounds like ever increasing, and then the technology on top of that. I wanted to ask one more question before we turn to the audience questions. Henry, what kind of training or support does Idemia offer for teams adopting this technology?
Well, quite a varied level, Chris. On the support side, we have various types of service level agreements with agencies, and in terms of training, we have a wide range of training programs. And I don't really have a list at hand, but if anyone that's interested, they can contact an Idemia representative and make it available. But definitely, it is part of our product offering, that the product has various levels of support and various levels of training to facilitate the transition, the adoption of the system by our customers.
Very good, very good. So that should make it easy for agencies around Canada to adopt this technology, and you can see some interest, I think, reflected in the questions. So thank you to all of you who have entered some questions, and I think the one I'd like to start with is the first question that came in is, can the criminal entry pull information from the RMS system? I heard that IntelliBook can be set up to push data into RMS.
No, it's the other way around, Chris. What Laura and I were talking about was a situation where the more common mode is when we integrate with an RMS system, is that the data is entered into the RMS system first, and then on to IntelliBook. And the overall concept in that is, even before the arrest, there may be an incident, and the incident is part of the record management system. And so the next step for the law enforcement agency would be to, take that incident and turn it into an arrest record, which is data only, and then the information can be transferred through an interface to IntelliBook SA, where the agency then can review the data if they want to, possibly fill in some missing items that the record management system didn't capture, like maybe scar mark DAC2 information, and then take out the fingerprint and photographs to complete the record for submission to the RCMP CCRTIS system. So So definitely there's, an important thing. It's longer the days. Well, it's been a long time since the days when these systems were completely independent, and a key, an important part of integration with the agencies' systems on site is to avoid redundant data entry. Nobody likes that.
Right. So the IntelliBook sits at the registration or booking part of that flow when the RMS has already been invoked to
That's right.
based on
That's
that
right.
incident. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. That's a good question and helpful answers. Thank you. Let's see. We've got yeah, a few more good questions here. Yeah, so we've got a question. I mean, I know this is we're focusing on the IntelliBook SA, but we've got a compare and contrast question. I think we should go with it. What are the key differences between the IntelliBook SA and the TPE, which was covered on a previous webinar? So I know we had a couple of different members from your team on that one, but yeah.
Yeah, in many ways, TPE and IntelliBook SA are very similar, right? As I said, they use some of the same underlying technologies in terms of the scanner devices, the scanning interfaces devices. To some extent, it's just a matter of branding. I mean, in Idemia in Canada has for a long time used the name IntelliBook Canada for its product offering here, and in the United States, the name Touchprint Enterprise, or TPE, has been part of that, has been the name used for that product offering. So the fact is, in each in its own way has variations. I mean, IntelliBook IntelliBook SA is intended for Canada, and in TPE, well, you could have a TPE that's customized for California versus Florida versus New York State versus Massachusetts, that sort of thing. Since they are in the context of the United States, of course, you have to deal with the state level jurisdiction, whereas in Canada we don't have. The criminal justice system is a pan-Canadian system, so that we only have to. This is why, when you asked earlier about how it applies across provinces, well, it's the same system across provinces in Canada, and in the U.S. you would never get that because each state is different from.
Right. So cousins within the LiveScan family, but designed to serve the market,
That's
the
right.
specific needs of the markets in Canada and the United States. Excellent. Got a question here specifically about the fingerprints. While capturing rolled prints, some fingerprints are cropped at the second phalange and some are cropped lower. Why? And I'm wondering if that is a kind of an accident of the capture, or yeah. Any comments on that, Henry or Laura?
Well, I suspect the person is asking in regards to the small rectangles that show on the screen. Maybe I'm not sure what that was. And those small rectangles that show on the screen aren't actually cropping rectangles for the image. They're just showing the primary area that has been used for evaluation of quality. So
okay, like the quality check bounding boxes.
So it's the area. So you see that whether we're talking about a palm, even in the palm image, you see that when you were looking at the palm image, you would see many rectangles, a rectangle for each of the fingertips and a rectangle for the upper palm image. And those rectangles aren't cropping rectangles per se. They're just the area of interest for the purpose of doing the quality evaluation. So perhaps that's what the person is asking about. Right.
Yeah, Laura, did you want to add anything there?
I think Henry covered it. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to say, that the rectangles are just an overlay of the application. It's exactly what Henry said. It's just an extra layer. We indicate to the operator that this is the area of interest. This is what we're taking into account when we calculate. And if the operator notices, for example, that the fingerprint is outside the rectangle for whatever reason, they can just recapture the image to adjust it. But in general, there's no need. It's just for the, like Henry said, quality assessment. That's it.
Yeah, and further to what Laura said, that they do provide an important information in certain error contexts, because let's say the subject's fingertip, the first phalange, is very dry, then perhaps the application will only select the second phalange, and then that's going to cause a cascade errors, because you would get inconsistencies with the other part of the record. By showing that, we're giving a hint, you know, the operator can realize something's not right there. It should have taken the first and second, or the first only, but it should not have simply selected the second phalange. So that would give the operator an indication something's not quite right, and then they could go back and apply some moisture to the subject's hands to improve the image capture. But in the examples, of course, that Laura showed, we didn't see that happening, but it can be, I mean, that issue where it would capture the second in lieu of the first. But so it's,
yes, that's quite correct. And also I wanted to say that the application actually indicates if the fingers are too dry or too moist. So in that case, it indicates fingers too dry, please use lotion or whatever. And if they are too wet, too moist, then we have to wipe them. So it's sort of like when you use ink to capture in the old way. When you capture with ink, if there is too much ink, you would get dark prints, and if it's too little ink, you would get a whiter image. It is similar here, but it's regarding the moisture. So yes, if the finger is too faint, the image is too faint, sometimes it's not recognized as a valid image, and there may be no rectangle around it. And as Henry mentioned, that should be an indicator to the operator to take some action, recapture, apply lotion, and so on.
So another element of the feedback that makes things easy for the operator in these edge cases where something goes wrong, or there's an error that has to be tracked down, they can track that error down quickly and address it. So that is excellent. Another question here about product life cycle. Is there a planned end life date for the existing LiveScan application, and is this a required upgrade?
Yeah, we do have older products, and we do end of life them from time to time. That's true in most jurisdictions. This product is not simply IntelliBook SA is not simply an upgrade to an existing product, even though we've used the name IntelliBook for many years. This is a very new product, and it's intended for replacement. And we expect that eventually other products, other versions of the product, like the will be end of life and then end of support, that sort of thing. But at this point in time, this is the product that the version that we're currently selling.
Well, you could adopt this and run it in parallel for the time being.
Yes, the other products are still acceptably used. I mean, one of the issues agencies will find, we've encountered from some customers, is that they may have systems that were bought many years ago and are still running on Windows 10. And Windows 10 is, the whole issue between the support of it, whether even if the agency themselves is willing to continue with Windows 10, the RCMP has some concerns about extended use of Windows 10 in those situations. So agencies do need to make changes, and then eventually systems become obsolete in various ways, right?
Very good. We've got a couple of questions that more or less echoed that same question. So a lot of people obviously thinking about the systems they're currently using, and maybe thinking about adding an IntelliBook SA to their deployment. We've got another question here that I would like to hit. How can a user determine whether the connection to the state is up or down? So do you have an indication of whether that connection, I guess, to the backend server is live or not?
Do you want to take that, Laura?
Yes. So, like we showed, when the first time the record is submitted, actually, we submit the record, we show it is in an in-queued state. And the fact that it's an in-queued state shows that it is ready. Basically, the system gets it ready for submission. But when it shows send, you actually confirm that it was sent. But the true confirmation that RCMP received our transaction is when you get an acknowledgement. So when you get the acknowledgement, it just indicates that RCMP has it. It doesn't indicate the full processing of the record. It only says, I got the record, you now wait for my response. And there is standard response times that RCMP provides for civil versus criminal. It is faster on criminal and a little bit slower on civil. But basically, that's it. So you can see in the transaction manager that a record is sent. If you got the acknowledgement, RCMP has it. If you didn't, then it's time to take action. If it has been a while and you didn't get anything, the acknowledgement should come pretty quickly.
Great. So you'll know right away. Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, we're running short on time here, but I would like to get to at least one or maybe two more here. We've got a question: is the system compatible with DL scanning to support data entry?
You're talking about driver's license, I assume, right?
I was just going to say, I think that means driver's license.
That's true. So again, for situations where there, for instance, a situation where there is a civil applicant transaction where there would be no RMS involved, because those are completely unrelated in that context, then it is possible to use a Canadian or US driver's license as a shortcut to reduce some data entry. So, and the driver's license has your basic information. I mean, it still has your height these days. That's right. And it would have your name as well as your address, that sort of thing. So that's a way of reducing data entry by scanning a driver's license, and that requires a different peripheral, because you need a little peripheral that will read the barcode off the back of the driver's license.
Yeah, did you want to jump in there, Laura, or were you just about to make the same point?
I just wanted to say that's exactly right. I didn't mention, but we do support barcode scanners, and that's the only thing. And Henry described it perfectly. So that's it. No more comments.
Perfect. And then we've got another question here just before we hit the top of the hour. Henry, you mentioned the Windows 10 shift to Windows 11. We've got an attendee asking, we've had our civilian LiveScan upgraded to Windows 11 and are looking to upgrade our criminal system to Windows 11. Does this mean we can possibly use the newer civilian Windows 11 hardware to do both civilian and criminal prints if IntelliBook is installed?
It's true that for the smallest of the law enforcement agencies we support, there are situations where they would have one system and they would use it both for a criminal context and for a civil context, and of course, and there's various ways they have to manage that physical nature, because typically a system used for criminal arrest transactions is in a secured area of the premises away, and a system that's intended for the public to interact with and might be in a more public area of the access. So, but it is true that customers solve that problem in different ways, and a single workstation could be used for both criminal transactions and civil transactions. I suspect that some of our customers, for instance, have specific days where they make it available for public civilian applications, let's say every Wednesday or something like that, and they simply manage the flow in such a way that they can use the same machine for both. The system, the records are completely independent of each other on the system. It's not like there's any confusion. The criminal transactions are distinctly different than civil transactions, and they get processed by the RCMP in very different ways, although they both ultimately do go through the same AFIS at the RCMP for checking for identity, that sort of thing.
So it is possible in principle, you just have to manage it
yes.
and have the appropriate controls and so on. Great. I just want to hit one more before we wrap up here. Does the product support digital capture of major case prints, including fingertips?
No, if this product doesn't support what's called major case prints and the EGIs and the tips. We don't support that in this product. Okay.
Okay, so that would be a separate product to meet those needs.
That's right.
Perfect. Well, there is an awful lot that you can do with the IntelliBook SA, as we have heard about today. So thank you very much, Laura, and thank you very much, Henry, for sharing all of your insights about the IntelliBook SA. And I also want to thank all of you who joined us on the call today and all of you who asked questions. There are several other questions that we've not been able to get to in our allotted hour, which we are currently over. But I just want to point out to all of you on the call, if your question was not answered, please go to na.idemia.com, reach out to Idemia Public Security, and your questions will be answered. We'll have information, links, and so on in that email that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So you will have the opportunity to get in touch with Idemia, get any final points of confirmation or information that you need, and start exploring deploying the new IntelliBook SA. We will be back soon to talk more about biometrics and digital identity. And until then, everyone, take care.